We have so much to talk about today, Tony. You feeling good about the show?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Yes, as long as we don't fumble it away on the goal line.
No.
That's an inside joke,
yeah,
isn't it? That's an inside joke. You understand it.
If you,
all the Wildcats understand it.
Have you heard me often as angry as I was when I talked to you on the phone Saturday afternoon from Evanston?
I know how terrible you sounded and how angry you were. The Dukies understand that joke. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, some unexpected results in the NFL, a wild Saturday in college football, and two young winners at the U.S. Open. But we begin today with the long-awaited first Sunday of the NFL season. Let us start with the late game, a dull, easy win for Tampa Bay and Dallas. The headline of the game was that Dak Prescott broke a bone in his throwing thumb. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Wilbon, do you take this result as a sign of things to come for both teams?
Yeah, Tony, and more for Dallas. I'm not sure about Tampa yet. I know Tampa looked really good, and their defense looked good. And when Dak was in there, Tampa's defense smothered that offense. But I'm really looking at Dallas here because of the injury to Dak Prescott. And other factors. Tony, just over the last couple of years, the people that the Dallas offense doesn't have anymore. Amari Cooper. La'el Collins, who's now in Cincinnati, trying to protect that quarterback. They didn't do such a good job yesterday, but that's a big loss.
No,
Michael Gallup, Tony, who's out, and they got to get Michael Gallup back, and Tyron Smith, who's out until I think at least December. These are very pivotal players in the Dallas Cowboys offense. They don't have any offense. They couldn't score with Dak in. Now he's out.
Yeah, so I'll be dismissive of Tampa Bay in this regard. I called you before the game, and I told you I thought they were going to lose.
I know.
They did not lose. I was very impressed that Tom Brady got the ball out of his hands so quickly, given the fact that he has a makeshift offensive line that may have lost another player yesterday, but he's the GOAT. He's supposed to do that. They're in a lousy division, Mike. They're going to be okay.
Yeah, they are. They'll be fine.
It's the same thing with Dallas all the time. Just it never stops. The last 2 years on Get Up, on First Take. Will Dak get his money? Will Ezekiel Elliott get enough carries? When will they fire Mike McCarthy? Now we're doing it again. And if Dak Prescott gets back at a reasonable time, all you're going to hear is this: will Dak get him to the playoffs? Mike,
drama.
They have it. I know you agree with this.
Drama king.
Disproportionate amount of coverage for a team that is disappointing on a regular basis.
They don't. I mean,
so
they're just not as important as the coverage would suggest, even though we just led with them. Intra-divisional matchups produced some compelling results. Khalil Mack had 3 sacks and a forced fumble. Chargers beat the Raiders. Justin Jefferson, my God, had a huge day as the Vikes upset the Packers, throttled them. Joe Burrow, 5 turnovers, Tony, and Evan McPherson missed that kick to win. And the Steelers beat the Bengals as always, this time in OT. The Saints come back from 16 down in the 4th to beat the Falcons. And Mike McDaniel's Dolphins, I mean, they really handled Bill Belichick's Patriots convincingly. Tony, which result was most intriguing to you?
The most intriguing one to me, and I'm going to rate them in order, was the Chargers beating the Raiders. After that, it was the way the Dolphins blanketed the Patriots. I'm going to discount the Cincinnati thing because they should have won that game.
Right.
The point after got blocked. They should have won that game. I'm going to discount the New Orleans game against Atlanta because they stink, and I don't care about them. And I'm going to discount the Minnesota win for this reason, Mike. Green Bay has a history of losing very early and then still winning 12 or 13 games. I believe Matt LaFleur's record in opening games is 2-2, and he's 37-9 after that, so I discount that. I'm going to say the Chargers first, Mike, because I think they could be a real good team. And I think Justin Herbert is on the verge of being a real good quarterback. I want to get the numbers. 26-34 with no picks, and they beat a playoff team. That's impressive to me. That's the best division in football, the AFC West. Every divisional game matters in that one.
Tony, I tend to agree with you about I'm going to call them this the whole time. So I don't want to hear anybody in my ear telling me, but they play in Los Angeles now. They're the San Diego Chargers. And they wore the right uniforms yesterday. And I love them. I love watching them. And they got Khalil Mack. And I'm sorry, I'll just have to go from 152 jersey in blue and orange to the 52 jersey in the baby blue. Because Khalil Mack was a wrecker yesterday, like he was in his first few games with the Bears that whole first season.
That's right.
And so, but I am not about to dismiss the Vikings. Okay? Because Kirk to Jefferson, Captain Kirk. Tony, Jefferson may be the best receiver in football, and they have him. And he is a game wrecker. And he wrecked listen, Aaron Rodgers has to take some of the blame, Tony, for what happened with Green Bay.
Sure.
Because he can go out there and criticize those young players if he wants. But he wasn't there for the OTAs, and he wasn't there in training. He was there, but he didn't play in the preseason. Did he? It's a question. Right. It's not a comment. Did he spend enough time with those young players like Brady would have and often does when he's in that situation? Did Aaron Rodgers do that?
Wasn't there this
Tony,
year.
The Vikings are on to something, and the Packers may be on to something they don't want to be, which is more than a week one disappointment.
Let me just get very briefly to the Patriots. They got handled.
They did.
Miami often beats them in Miami historically. That happens a lot. Who knows? It's only the first week. But a couple of years ago, everybody asked the same question. Who's more responsible for the Patriots' success? Is it Brady or is it Belichick? Right now, today, just in this small sample, it really looks like Brady, not Belichick. Let's move to quarterbacks who famously changed addresses in the offseason. Tonight, you will see Russell Wilson for Denver going against his old team in Seattle. But yesterday, we saw Carson Wentz win with his new team in Washington, Baker Mayfield lose with his new team in Carolina, and Matt Ryan tie with his new team, Indianapolis. Wilbon, which of these quarterbacks, the three of them, their debuts, stuck out to you?
Really, none of them. But Carson Wentz,
really?
I mean, I'm a guy who doesn't believe in Carson Wentz. And he came through.
Right.
He came through for that team, and he came through late, and they won the game. So let me give some credit to Carson Wentz for now. Baker Mayfield is the most over-talked about professional athlete in America, period. The commercials are great. You can talk about the commercials all you want, because they were great. They're not even on anymore because he's got a new uniform. But Indianapolis should not be in that position. They got people picking them to win the AFC, mostly because they can come through a weaker division, not the AFC West. But I'm going to go Carson Wentz, Tony. I just thought the Washington football team, by whatever name, I thought they might lose that game yesterday. He came through for them.
Yeah, so I watched the Red Zone, as you know, and the least attractive game in the entire slate of early games was Jacksonville at Washington.
Yeah,
so it was rare that I get to see anything about that game. Then in the fourth quarter, they show it, that Carson Wentz has two terrible interceptions.
He did.
Terrible. So I assume they're going to lose the game to Jacksonville. Then I find out he has 4 touchdown passes, 2 of them after the 2 interceptions.
That's who he is.
So as with you, my hat is off to him, though I don't trust him at all. Baker Mayfield, I rooted for him. I wanted him to win. He did not win. He's off the radar for the rest of the year. You're never going to hear about him again. Let me get to Indianapolis.
You were a guy who put him on the radar. You and Greeny, two of my dearest friends. You and Greeny, Baker Mayfield.
He's off now. He's off now. Indianapolis is important because Washington's not a good team and Carolina's not a good team. Indianapolis is purported to be a good team. Your friend Frank Reich, my friend too. 3 quarterbacks in 3 different years now. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and now Matt Ryan. I like Matt Ryan. He should have won that game.
He should have.
Houston stinks.
Slow start.
He should have won that game.
Should have won that game. You're right. We're going to stick with quarterbacks. Kind of. Trey Lance and the Niners got stuck in the mud in Chicago. The Bears didn't score in the first half, couldn't even complete a pass, but Justin Fields led his team to 3 second-half touchdowns and a win at swampy Soldier Field. Tone, what, if anything, does this result say to you about Justin Fields and or Trey Lance?
I'm going to stay away from Justin Fields because he's your account. He had 121 yards passing, 51 on a broken play when he went from the left side to the right side. 71 yards on all the other passes. It's just not much, so you can deal with him. Trey Lance is a different story. The story of this game is San Francisco lost. They are allegedly a playoff team. The Bears are allegedly one of the worst teams in the league.
Maybe the worst.
So the question every single time that San Francisco loses a game, the question's going to be the same. Is Trey Lance up to this job? And yesterday, he did not look like it. I'm going to yield the rest of my time to you and just say this. I thought it was insane to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. He may have to bail out that team in 3 weeks.
He may have to play. Look, Trey Lance is still a work in progress very much, and the beginning part of that scale. But, Tony, he did some things yesterday. He's a magician. I mean, in terms of avoiding rush, avoiding pressure, and it's going to come together. The question is, will it take too long for this season? Justin Fields and the Bears, Justin Fields has no weapons. He has no line. Even with a win, he has no line and he has no weapons. All the passes he completed were to his backs. He couldn't even get the ball to Mooney. He couldn't get the ball to the Notre Dame tight end we have. And yet he made those plays. The plays weren't broken because of somebody else. Justin Fields broke that down. Like a young Steve Young, Tony, maybe even like a young Fran Tarkenton. Justin Fields made, Tony, the Bears stink. They have no players other than they got the quarterback, and he made those plays and created them. So I don't know if the Bears they got to go to Green Bay.
Fine.
We got to go to Green Bay next week. I don't know what that means. But Justin
you
Fields
put him
was
right
the man.
now with Steve Young and Fran Tarkenton?
Well,
right now you want to go that far?
Early on.
That's optimism.
Early on.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Coming up, we'll get to the insane weekend of college football, which included Northwestern coming so close before fumbling it away.
We got to show that, really. We got to show that. Will the winners of the U.S. Open dominate tennis going forward? They laid out a lot, apparently.
No, I mean, I look at Indianapolis. Every year they're supposed to be a playoff team.
Yeah, they get late starts, too, like the Packers, though. They get...
It's time to hear from the Littles in mail time. Let me see what's first here. Here we go. College football was bonkers this weekend.
Yeah.
Who had the biggest win and loss?
Well, the biggest loss is a guy who lost his job. Just one guy lost his job, Scott Frost at Nebraska. And this has been coming for a long time. It's not just like this was the 1-2 start with the 2 losses they've got, including one to my guys in Ireland. It's the 4 years, Tony. He's not the savior that they thought. And Nebraska folks, you know, great many people at Nebraska, Mike Gleason starting with you, who I love, and they all think too much of their talent. They do. They all the time they think they've got this great team. They don't. And Scott Frost is paying for this, and he overrates it probably too. And the biggest win, I guess, Appalachian State again. You know, I think so, Tony. Yeah. They pop up and they have these wins, and they're so impressive. They go on the road. They get money to presumably lose, and they don't lose. Or they lose most of them, but they win. They beat Michigan. They beat Notre Dame. It's amazing. Or beat the Texas A&M. I'm sorry.
Look, I agree with you about Nebraska. I agree with you about Nebraska, and I'll tell you why. Because Appalachian State went to the big house and beat Michigan.
Yes.
People know that they can do this.
Yes.
And they go and they beat. It's interesting. I think that's a bigger loss, Texas A&M's, than Notre Dame's. Notre Dame, by the way, loses to Marshall, which had Randy Moss. I think it's bigger because they allegedly had the greatest recruiting class in the world. Yeah. And everybody asked who paid for them. And Jimbo Fisher got in a back and forth with Nick Saban about that whole thing. You know, but I agree with you with Scott Frost, because you can't lose to Georgia Southern, because they're not App State and they're not Marshall. The biggest win for me, and you may find this surprising, is Alabama.
No, I sort of agree.
Alabama should have lost that game.
Yep.
Alabama, there should have been a safety.
They stay undefeated.
Texas had that kid down, and they took the safety away, and they would have won that. The fact that they stayed undefeated prevents a volcano effect in college football. And Bryce Young made 2 plays at the end of that game that were spectacular. A spectacular pass and an escape and a run down the right side to set up that field goal. So I actually think Alabama had the biggest win. I do.
Tony, they stay undefeated. And Nick Saban's going to have some talking points and some teaching points for the next few weeks that them young men had better listen to.
Yeah. You're going to hear the word rat poison a lot. Which U.S. Open winner is more likely to be a dominant player going forward? Iga Swiatek or Carlos Alcaraz?
Neither. I'm going to tell you why. On the men's side, Tony, all summer I've been with this, spring and summer. There's great young players popping up out of the weeds everywhere in tennis. You got Alcaraz, you got Ruud, you still have Joker and Nadal, who are not young, but are still great. You have Tiafoe, who's sort of still fairly young at 24 years old. You got Medvedev. These guys are going to win. So nobody's going to dominate them, and if he does dominate them, he's a truly great young player. On the women's side, Osaka and Barty, I realize there's uncertainty there. Barty said she's retired. I don't believe it. Osaka, we don't know. I hope she comes back strong. Golf, Sabalenka, Raducanu, Jabeur, Pagula, Danielle Collins. I mean, Sloane Stephens might still be in the mix. There's too many people for anybody to dominate. Right. No dominance. This is going to be a great stretch of spreading around like the 1980s.
So I heard John McEnroe, and I take him at his word, say this is the first of many for Alcaraz. He was incredibly impressed with Alcaraz. You could see it and you could hear it.
Yeah.
Alcaraz went out there, and you said he was dead against Tiafoe because he went 5 sets.
Who was it?
He went 19 sets in his last 4 matches and was fresh every time he walked out there. But I agree with you. There's more male. I think it's a wider lane in the women's division than the men's division. And Swiatek has done something that's important. This isn't her first. She's only 21. This is her third. At 3, you ask the question, how good is this person? At 5 or 6, you say this person is great. I just think it's going to be easier for her to dominate. Barty is retired.
Depends about...
Serena is gone.
True.
Osaka, who has 4, you don't know if she's ever going to play again.
I think each one of them is going to win
Enough
some
female.
more. I do.
Let's take a break. Coming up, Brian Daboll goes for it in his debut as the Giants head coach.
And Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson get off to pretty darn good starts.
You agree that 3 is the number in tennis where you pay attention?
I think so, Tony.
3.
Yeah. But the men are going to be like the 80s, right from McEnroe and Borg and Lindell, right through Becker and all those guys and Edberg. I mean, there's too many good men. I don't think Alcaraz's going to dominate, even though I think he's great.
This season, Sling has the channel lineup to channel your college football. So you can catch the Hail Marys, witness every miracle.
Hey, Fitzgerald, out of nowhere, bro. This is the best thing ever. Two of the biggest, greatest receivers in the history of the game. Let's do this. All right, let's do it over here.
Happy time, people. Happy 33rd birthday, Freddie Freeman. Freeman was the National League MVP 2 years ago and the best player on the Atlanta World Series champions last year. Then why is he with the Dodgers now? Especially since everybody, including Freddie Freeman, thought he would be a Brave for life. That's the subject of much conjecture still circling around the Braves management and Freeman's advisors. What we are all sure about is that Freeman is killing it with the Dodgers, the best team in baseball. Freeman is leading the National League in batting at .331. He's 8th in RBI with 90. He's 2nd in runs scored with 100 and 2nd in OPS at .930.
Dodgers, Braves, Mets, Cardinals. Who you got? I mean, the Mets are the best team if those 2 aces stay healthy going in.
The Mets aren't the best. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball and have been for about 4 years.
I'll take the Cardinals over the Dodgers, and I hate the Cardinals, but I'll take them over the Dodgers if they get in the series against one another. That'd be a great series,
Knock yourself out.
Too.
I'll take your money. Happy anniversary, Vince Coleman. On this day 35 years ago, Cardinals outfielder stole his 100th base of the season for the 3rd straight season. Coleman had 110, 107, 109. That was the last time anybody stole 100 bases in a season. Maybe the new pickoff rules, limiting the amount of times a pitcher can throw over, will change that. Maybe outlawing defensive shifts, making bases bigger, maybe that will help. That year, Coleman had 153 singles, most of which he turned into doubles by stealing. Coleman is 6th all-time with 752 stolen bases. The current active leader, D. Strange Gordon, has only 336. The major league leader in steals this year is John Birdie of Miami with 32. Coleman and Ricky Henderson had 32 by May.
Which leads me to ask you this. Game 7, you're playing for a championship. You're under these, the old days rules like National League Baseball, even though Ricky was in the American League. Who you taking to steal a base, Henderson or Coleman?
Well, I'm going to take Ricky Henderson. I'm going to take Ricky Henderson.
You
Aren't you?
But you got to hesitate.
Okay.
I mean, that's a hell of a choice right there. Whoever you take, I'm going to be okay with the other guy.
Happy trails to the Titans in their home opener. The New York Football Giants, who are a bad team and haven't had a winning record at any point in the season since 2016, have won now. They scored a late touchdown and then unhesitatingly went for the 2-point conversion, not wanting to tie that game. Daniel Jones, who was quite good all game, ran right, then shoveled the ball back left to Saquon Barkley, who was great all game. And the Giants went up 21-20 with 1:06 left. When Tennessee's Randy Bullock missed a 47-yard field goal at the buzzer, the Giants had won for first-time coach Brian Daboll, who promised the team he'd be aggressive. And as a result, the Titans, last year's #1 seed in the AFC playoffs, lost at home in what I think is the biggest upset of the day.
Michael Strahan, in his pregame comments on his show, made this incredibly compelling, persuasive case to me in live time about the Giants being different because of this head coach and what he was going to do to change them starting yesterday. And you're like, at the end of those 3.5 hours, you're like, oh my God, Strahan, this is not crystal ball. I mean, he saw this. They are now worth watching, and the Giants haven't been worth watching for 5 or 6 years, Tony, they're the Jets.
That's
They've been as bad as the Jets, the same record essentially for 5 years.
Not as bad. Not quite as bad as the Jets.
Yes,
but you're right. And if
as
it comes
bad
from
as the
Strahan, who
Jets.
was a Giant, it's
Exactly.
important. But they've had 2 or 3 guys who are going to change everything around, and they never changed anything
No,
around.
didn't change
Maybe this will work. It was great that he went for 2. Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson both easily won their openers. Which was the bigger
Oh,
deal?
Lamar Jackson because of the contract drama. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Mahomes was great, spreading it around. Cheetah, what? The
He's
Eagles edged the Lions, who kept coming back. Were you impressed?
I mean, you can discount it because it's the Lions, but the Eagles look pretty good. You know, the path to the Super Bowl in the NFC is easier than the AFC. Some people are even mentioning the Eagles. Seems weird, but it's a good start. Albert Pujols homered twice over the weekend. He's now up to 697. You're excited for him,
He
right?
passed A-Rod for 4th. He's got 18 home runs this year in his 40s. Shohei went 101.4 miles per hour on the fastball, beating the Astros Saturday. Was that a big deal?
Well, you go over 100. When you're the starting pitcher and you're in, like, not the first inning, you're not out there for 1 inning, go over 100. That's a big deal. He's getting better as a pitcher all the time. Last one, the Aces beat the Sun in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals. Your thoughts?
The Aces are the best team. I'd like to see a long, protracted series, because I like watching WNBA playoff games particularly. But this could be a sweep, Tone. The Aces are that good. They're the best team this year.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Now to get you set for Monday Night Football, here's Susie Culber and the Countdown Crew.
Hold your pose. We're on a Jumbotron.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Welcome to Seattle and one of the most anticipated events in this city's sports history. We're taking you up to kickoff and recapping a super fun week 1 on Monday Night Countdown presented by Subway. The season opening showdown between the Broncos and Seahawks at Lumen Field, all about the return of the best quarterback to ever wear the action grid. Russell Wilson debuting tonight in orange and blue.